Welcome to Behind the Screens, Conversations with Background Screening Pros. I'm Les Rosen, your host, and I'm excited to have you here. On this podcast, we chat with the people who know the background screening world inside and out. Executives, industry experts, legal pros, and more. We dive into their personal stories and insights to give you a real look at what's happening behind the scenes. Whether you work in the screening industry or are just curious, Behind the Screens bring you the real, unfiltered conversations from the people who make it all happen. Stick around for stories you won't hear anywhere else. So, welcome to our program today, Behind the Screens, and it is my great pleasure, and I am so pleased that Kerstin Bagus is joining us today. Kerstin, how are you? Say hello to everybody.
Hey, hello, everybody. Doing just great. Just came back from vacation, so all rest.
Fantastic. Well, we'll hear about that.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know Kerstin, you can obviously read her LinkedIn bio, but I think that probably is not a very large group. I think we all know who you are. And during the program, we will, I think, talk about Berlin. We'll talk about national parks. We'll talk about all sorts of great things. I have to say that Kerstin has been my international guru ever since I've been in the screening industry. I have never said or spoken or written anything international that has not been approved by Kerstin, and she pretty much wrote the chapter on my last book on the Safe Hiring Manual on Internationals, and she is beyond guru. So let's get into it. Kerstin, let's start off by talking about your current role, which is partly consulting and partly retired. And what do you do now? And what do you like about it?
So what I really enjoy is that I get to work on what I want to work on. So luckily, as you said, I'm partly retired. So I am phasing into a retirement profile. I don't know when the end is going to be, but I get to work with customers to help them answer the questions with their customers. So my company, NetForce Global, what we do is we work with other background screeners. We don't work with end users at all. We just work with other background screeners. And so I work with our customers, our screener customers, to help them answer with the questions with their clients. The way I like to describe it is, you're the person in front of your customer, and I'm going to whisper the answer in your ear, and then that way you're the hero, and I will do all the research behind that and make sure that you're the hero. So I really love that. I love the research part of it, and I love making people the hero.
That's great. And I don't want to turn this into a podcast about international background screening, because there's plenty of resources to do that. But I do recall that at least at one time, you were the only person on the planet who had privacy certifications for the U.S. and Europe and whatever it was. You were the only person, right?
I can't confirm that I was ever the only person that did that.
Right.
So, but in background screening, I was fortunate to work with a company that encouraged us to do a lot of training and to really invest into privacy. This was at ChoicePoint, and ChoicePoint had selected individuals in different business units, and I was one of the people selected in my business unit. And they paid for our training and had us go through all the certification. And then after that, in my division, I was encouraged to continue getting certifications. And so I continue to follow the learning and the training and the certifications and all that. So I was able to stand out and be different in our industry, just because I really focused on privacy, which is a scary thing
Right.
for our customers and for our data subjects, for the individuals who are being screened. So it was a little bit unique. I don't know if I was the only person that did that, but I did really focus on that.
I remember having conversations with you when the EU was going through their various privacy things and the 28 member countries, and there were just so many issues and so many variations and so many things that were unknown and unknowable. It's just, my head would explode. But,
And so
but yours didn't.
It's the EU to Americans is so confusing. The EU privacy regulations for us was just so confusing, yes.
Well, what was your path? How did you get from where you started? And I'll give the audience a hint, nursing, to being the leading expert on international background checks.
Yeah, so oddly, I went to school to be a nurse, to get a bachelor's degree in nursing, and then wound up falling in love with the psychiatric department, which was very interesting, kind of unloved. Who loves psych, right? But it was really neat. And I worked on a psych ward. I worked on an Freudian analytic psych ward for juvenile delinquents.
So did working in a psych ward give you training for working with background screeners? Just kidding, folks.
Yeah, well, it was actually the juvenile delinquent part that helped me to work on the background screen thing. So I worked on a state psychiatric ward for about 3.5 years, and then had an opportunity to get into screening, and then wound up going to screening, which was working from juvenile delinquents to adult delinquents, in essence, trying to understand that, and then just progressed from there.
Oh, that's fantastic. So what do you like the most about your career in the background screening industry with all the things you've done and various people you've done it for?
Every single day I learn something new. I mean, every single day. Yesterday, I was trying to understand the California privacy regulations and how to respond to a request from that. And I'll get requests from, is it legal to do so-and-so in this country? And what kind of information do we need to have to be able to provide a search in this country? And it's, even if you just focus in the U.S., what is the content of a U.S. credit report, and how does a social trace get put together, and why is a social trace impacting my credit score? And every single day is just an amazing day of questions and answers and learning. I just love it. Just amazing.
And that's kind of a recurring theme on this podcast, that a lot of us who were experienced, we get to the point, well, we think we're pretty knowledgeable. The next day you come to work and something brand new comes up.
No, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. The day you think you know it all is the day you get hit with something that shows, like, God, I don't know anything. Right.
Yep. And there's so many people in this industry who are so knowledgeable about things. And what's great about this industry, I don't know if it's the same in other areas. Is it the same in cereal? I don't know. But people here, even though we're competitors, we share information and we teach each other. We teach our competitors. What would we teach our competitors? But we do. We teach our competitors. And, that is just so unique and so collaborative. It's lovely. It's just absolutely lovely.
And what's really interesting about this idea of something new every day, so I think you alluded to it, you deal with U.S. privacy, but there's 50 states, and then there's some 240 is the last figure I heard, political entities around the world, because there's some political entities that aren't independent UN members that have their own rules. And you multiply that by the 240 countries, and it's just an endless universe of possibilities of things that we don't know or have yet to encounter. And is that one of your experiences?
It is mind-boggling. I subscribe to a lot of legal emails, so that I can try and keep up with what's going on in this country and that region. There's actually no definition of a country. So people say, oh, you do international searches in 200 countries and 400 countries and whatever. There's no definition.
Right.
So, we use 220, 200, 240, whatever. Anyone can be accurate. But just keeping up with every single one of them is a lot of reading. In language that I don't read. So, yeah.
And it's not just keeping up on criminal records. It's criminal records for different occupations, and then Social Security or whatever internal they call it, and education and everything. You multiply it by all possibilities.
Well, even the rules for when you can do and how you can do employment verifications can change from country to country.
Yeah.
The simple thing that we in America take for granted is, yes, you can do an employment verification, is not so easy in some other countries, which is fun. In some part, just the learning experience is very fun. Keeps your mind going.
Mind-boggling is the right word. And you mentioned the fact that it's a very cooperative industry in sharing information. A lot of that has to do with PBSA. I will remind the listeners that you are a recipient of the Mike Sankey Lifetime Achievement Award from PBSA. Congratulations. That's marvelous. What role have you played in PBSA? How has it affected your career?
I would not be who I am today in the industry had I not been so involved in PBSA. And I was fortunate that my bosses all supported that. So it's hard if your boss doesn't support it. It's really hard to be that involved in that. But I was fortunate that my bosses really supported that. But it allowed me to make connections. When I was in a position to choose vendors, I gravitated towards vendors who were in PBSA, and not only in PBSA, but involved. So to me, it was a difference. It's like, yeah, you're a member, or are you involved? And if you were involved, that gave you a bunch of whole pluses when I was doing vendor selection. I learned a lot about products, the insides of products, when I would work on committees or task forces to produce documents. That's when you really learn about the insides, about how a product works and doesn't work, and, what are the pitfalls, and that, just all the stuff that you just don't normally see when you just see a deliverable. It's all the inside guts of it. And then just the connections. I have connections all over the world. So, I was talking today with one of our salespeople, and we were talking about a particular prospect, and nothing is moving with the prospect. And I said, well, I know the CEO. Do you want me to call the CEO? So I would not be able to have those connections had I not been so really active in PBSA.
And by active, people who go to PBS meetings will know this, but there were years where you gave, at least 3 different presentations on various aspects of international privacy or vendor selection or the use of criminal records at PBSA meetings. Am I recalling that right?
Yeah, I did. Usually I do 3 presentations. I think there was one year I did 4, which was a real killer. But even beyond just doing presentations, it's a matter of being visible in the organization so that a stranger can reach out to you and say, hi, I'm a PBSA member. I don't understand so-and-so. And then you just help them out. It's not a sales call. You're not trying to sell them anything. You're a PBSA member. I'm a PBSA member. I want to help you out. And there are so many times that people have done that for me. And a lot of times I've done that for other people. And I think that's something unique about our organization, that we're just really willing to open up and to help somebody who, eventually could even take business away from us. But, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right and do it quality. And you want to help everybody do it in a quality way.
And it's also interesting when you have a co-presenter. So sometimes your partner in crime is Andy Hellman, and who's done a lot of international as well. So I think that's always an interesting part when you get to co-present with somebody and meet new people and work together. That's always kind of fun as well.
I don't think anyone wants to hear me drone on for 45 minutes. So it's usually better when we have a co-presenter. And we have a, sometimes, mostly I co-present with Andy, but often I've co-presented with other people too. So it's just helpful to get a different perspective. And when you co-present, as you're building your presentation, you sometimes have different perspectives on what you're going to say. So that's helpful.
And you and I have done webinars together, and I very cleverly said, Kerstin, why don't you take this slide? This is difficult. I'll do the easy stuff. All right. And you didn't bat an eye. I said, sure.
And I'll say, yeah, on this one, Les, you're the attorney. You should be able to speak to the law.
All right.
Yeah.
So, given your perspective and experience in the industry, if someone is either new to the industry or newish, or maybe they've been in it for 3 or 4 years and trying to figure out a future path, or trying to decide whether to enter the industry, what's your advice? What does Kerstin Bagus would say to that person if they're looking for career advice?
If you're really dedicated to the industry, just sop up every piece of information or learning you can find. I mean, find your niche, within the industry. You would say screening is a single industry, but then within that, there are different divisions. There's records, criminal records and civil records and that. And then there's verifications, there's identity documentation, and then there's sanction stuff, So find one of those areas and fall in love with it. Just, absolutely fall in love with a sub niche and then learn every single thing you can about it. And then if somebody asks you to do something, even if it's the most undesirable part of the work, do it. Just really get into that, get into a sub niche and specialize yourself. And I think that is how you can stand out.
What about participation in PBSA? I still think of it as any PBS, but PBSA and committees. I know you've done a lot of that, and being on the board, right?
Yeah, I was on the board, and being in a committee is invaluable, again, because when deliverables are being put together or when the committees are having their conversations, you learn all these tiny little nuances that you would not learn otherwise when you're working in the particular industry.
Absolutely.
So, unfortunately, a lot of people can't travel to PBSA conferences. They're not afforded a lot of time to be able to participate.
Right.
But if you can join a task force to do something, you will make connections that will help you throughout your entire career. And you'll also learn a lot just in doing the research to be able to fulfill the task force environment. So I would definitely encourage that. Even if it's just a tiny segment of it, even if all you do is just one single project, you will learn a lot on that project.
And people talk about developing relationships and friendships, professional friendships that have blossomed into personal, long-time friendships. So
what our industry is just amazing for.
Wow. So let's segue away from background screening and let's talk more about Kerstin Bagus. There's just so much more to you than background screening. Background screening, I think, is just a small part of your life. Outside of background screening, share with us some hobbies, interests outside of work, what you do for fun, things like that.
So as a semi-retired person, a lot of my work is outside of my work, mercifully. So I do enjoy traveling. I enjoy seeing the world. We just got back from a vacation in Canada, which was phenomenal. But I enjoy hiking, which is such a good piece of exercise. It doesn't take a lot of fancy equipment. You just need a good pair of shoes, good pair of socks. If you're going uphill a lot, good hiking sticks are good. You can buy them for $25 on Amazon, so that's good. So I really enjoy that, get out in the fresh air and that. So I've had my time and in many years, I've done many other sports and all that, but hiking as an older person is a great exercise.
Well, tell us just briefly about the national park that you and your husband have sort of adopted.
Yeah, so my husband Bob and I have done a lot of work with the Chattahoochee National Recreation Area, which is...
Easy for you to say, the Chattahoochee.
Chattahoochee, yes.
Okay, because you've taken me there. You've kicked my butt up and down trails in the Chattahoochee.
Yeah, so it's actually part of the National Park Service, which is here in Atlanta. It's just north of Atlanta. It's got 85 miles of official trails, probably 200 miles of unofficial trails. So I've done a lot of stuff there with trail maintenance and leading groups and that. And actually lately I've been working with my own county, Forsyth County, and tomorrow I'm leading a hike for Forsyth County Senior Services on the Chattahoochee National Park area.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I know the last couple of years, I don't want to get too deep into things, but I know you've been going to Montana for family issues and taking care of family matters, taking up a lot of your time as well. And hopefully those are resolving. You're able to get some more time to travel.
Yeah, we've become semi-residents of Livingston, Montana, which is about an hour north of Glacier of Gardner, which is just the northern entrance of Yellowstone National Park.
Okay.
So quite familiar there. We have a group of friends out there in that beautiful area, just absolutely gorgeous. And Yellowstone is an otherworldly park. I mean, it's something to experience. We were there in May and we saw the buffalo calves. I mean, literally newborn buffalo calves, been born the day before.
Wow.
Marching with the rest of the buffalo tribe and all that. It's pretty,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, tell us something then about yourself that people may not know or would not be familiar with, and maybe a little bit about the time you spent in Berlin or other things that those of you who know you professionally or through PBSA wouldn't know about you.
Yeah. So my mother was born in Germany, came from Berlin. My father was a spy, an American spy. This is post-World War II.
Wow.
And yeah, he had an assumed name and everything and all that. And she was quite the dish, apparently. She was dating other spies, too. So not intentionally. At one point in time, he thought she was a Mata Hari, but she was not. So I had her mother and her sister stayed in Berlin. She immigrated to America, and I was born here in the United States. But I went every summer, and in fact even learned to speak, apparently, in Berlin. So my first language was German, apparently. So I would go every summer as a child to Berlin, and I was very familiar with the area and traveled quite often there. And then the only other thing is, most people, I don't know how many people know, it's like I'm an unconventional person, as you might think. So my husband and I were married underwater in the British Virgin Islands.
I remember that now.
Yes, we were married underwater. So we had a little signpost that we would, point for that had our marriage vows on it, and we would point to every single word. And then we had a minister underwater with us, and we did the whole I do thing under there. And I have a very cheap wedding ring because my husband was afraid he was going to drop it in the sand. So,
where was this? Where is it, off the Florida Keys or?
Well, we were staying in the British Virgin Islands, and the registrar refused to give us a license because she said it was sacrilegious. And so we wound up getting married in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We took a ferry there and got married in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It was $3.50 for a wedding license, and we had to buy a tank of beer for everybody. Not many people have to buy a tank of beer on their wedding, but I bought a tank of beer for everybody. We had a minister, and it was on Kogi Beach in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so I was always an adventurous soul.
So that's a little gem that I had completely forgotten now. I don't think people know about you.
Yep. I have wedding pictures. If anybody wants to see them, I have wedding pictures.
we
had a photographer. Yeah.
Try and post one or something.
Yeah. Yep.
So, so obviously you spoke, or I assume you still speak fluent German.
I speak fluent German with an accent, although generally when I go to Germany, they cannot identify that it's an American accent. As my aunt used to say, I don't sing the words right. I don't have the inflection in the right word.
Right, yeah.
So people can tell that I'm not from there, but they don't know that I'm an American.
Fantastic.
Yeah. There was one time we went into a shop and somebody was challenging me on my nationality. And it's like, oh, you're not American. It's like, well, yeah, I am. Here's the passport.
Right.
So, I don't know.
So what year, what ages approximately did you spend summers in Berlin with your family?
Oh, gosh. From, 57 on to probably the 1980s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And from there, you got to go all over Europe.
Well, Berlin was, most of those years, Berlin was a walled city, and it was, and my father would not allow me to travel by surface in East Germany because he was a spy, and he thought that they had a dossier on them, which they most likely didn't have, now when you look at everything. But at the time, they were always concerned about that.
Wow.
So I was pretty limited to the city wall. I mean, you're in a city with a wall all the way around it, so there's so far you can go.
That is interesting. Well,
and the most desirable thing you can do there is to be able to go into East Berlin, and I was not allowed to go to East Berlin.
Right. So international woman of mystery and adventure. That's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It was interesting upbringing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that unique and interesting. Wow. Well, just really quick, off the top of your head, given your experience and perspective in the screening industry, what do you think the top issues are facing the background screening industry, or the top challenges? Boom, like a Rorschach test.
Well, yeah, the top issue is all the mergers and the influence of private equity, which is degrading the customer experience.
Okay. And what do you think about new technologies, and how do you think that'll influence what screeners are doing or the profession does?
We need to be really careful about AI, and you don't want to be putting personal information into anything that has AI, because it's going to live there forever and you have no control over it, and you need to really be careful about the quality of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I hear. Now, that it's a kind of a two-pronged, a two-headed monster. There's privacy and personal information, and there's also, it runs afoul of the basic rule of background screening and human resources, which is individualized assessment, and each person is evaluated individually based upon who they are and what they did as a person, not as a statistical point. So at any rate, something for the industry to work with as we go forward. Yeah, so I appreciate all the things you shared. I've known you for a while, and I've learned new things about you. That's fantastic. I mean, just it brings a smile to my face, some of the things we talked about. So it's really fun. So any other closing thoughts that you want to share about your career in the screen industry, or what you see coming, or what you see coming in your future?
It's a fabulous industry. I love working in it. I hope people who join the industry really love it. If you are in a senior management position, please invest in your people and allow them to learn and grow and be devoted to this industry, because they can do great things for your company. Absolutely great things. I think what I've been able to do with PBSA has helped my employers tremendously, but my employers also allowed me to grow in the industry. So let your people be involved and grow and network and all that. And that's tremendous.
And as you move more in retirement, what does the future hold? Do you have any more bucket list plans or things you're thinking about or hoping to do?
I've got, many millions of freaking flyer miles that I have to use. So I've got to use the freaking, I still don't know. I can't quit. I just cannot quit.
Yeah.
Quit. But a lot of frequent flyer miles and lots of hiking still to do, and visiting friends and traveling and all that. So that's it.
Well, when it comes to frequent flyer miles, you have to use it or lose it.
Yeah, that's true.
And you're one of the unique people. I hope you don't mind if I share this, but because you were with Starwood before the Marriott merger, you actually have lifetime titanium membership.
Miles, yeah.
Yeah. And that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I didn't, for a whole year, I didn't even stay in a Marriott, and I stayed in the Hilton the whole year, and for whatever reason, Marriott gave me a lifetime thing, so whatever. So I have a lifetime, whatever, room or something in Marriott, so.
Yeah, for those of you that are frequent flyer and aficionados, you can't get lifetime titanium anymore. I mean, that was something you could get from Starwood, but once Starwood was bought by Marriott. That's a little piece of trivia that may not interest a lot of people. But
$1 million status on a few areas and then the titanium. But anyway, it's helpful. It's very helpful. So.
Well, I hope you use them. You certainly deserve it. And it's a big world, and lots of places that would love to have you, and you would love to go. So fantastic.
Yeah. And then just for anybody, if you're a PBSA member and you have a question, I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. Just ask the question. I'll answer it. I just want the whole industry to be better and help the customers.
Right.
And I love answering questions. So just ask the question. I can always say
fantastic. Yeah. Well, and for our listeners, we'll be posting your LinkedIn profile, and people can get hold of you there. And so you're basically saying, folks, you're welcome to reach out.
Just ask. Happy to answer.
That's fantastic. I mean, you can't get a better offer than that. That's like the pro from Dover saying, reach out. I'm happy to talk to you. That's like the best offer, folks, you're going to get in a long time. All right. Well, Kerstin Bagus, wonderful to talk to you again. And thank you for sharing with us. And thanks again for everyone for listening to this episode of Behind the Screens, our conversations with background pros. And we're happy to have with us if you looked in the dictionary under background pro, you'd see a picture of Kerstin Bagus. So we really appreciate it, Kerstin. All right. That was yet another wonderful conversation with a background screening pro. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an update. And hey, if you got a moment, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It really helps get the word out. For more info or to catch up on past episodes, or to make suggestions or to suggest possible future guests, head over to our website. Once again, this is your host, Les Rosen, and it's been a pleasure to bring you another episode. See you on the next episode. Thanks.